Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. Another poem is too long. I don't know why I'm writing long poems again. Number 5,100 of the poems. 5,100 I've written. It's called, in quotes, Loin Voids. I couldn't understand what he was getting at. Was he mentally displaced? Or like an alien from outer space? Or an apparition that only I could see? And what was I hearing him say? Loin voids? That sounded suggestive in an asexual sort of way, so of course I was intrigued and looked around to see if I was the only one catching this. It wasn't a busy time of day. There were a few tourists, since it was the time of day that most would be working in offices in the financial district where we had our encounter. And then I noticed that I had been paying so much attention to this, whatever he or they or it was. I mean, one doesn't go around dressed in a polka-dotted suit with the dots being seemingly every color on the spectrum on white and not get noticed. I looked down. I wasn't dressed for work or anything. I was on one of my elongated non-working periods. You know, the ones that got me here typing this story up to you with such faux urgency. I was wearing sneakers, the most expensive pair of shoes I'd ever worn, to the best of my knowledge. Picked them up the weekend previous at some swank new hipster haven. It was on Fillmore, as I recall. So expensive sneaks. Loin voids. I felt like I was doing research, but then as I said, I looked down somewhere in the direction of my own voided loins, but what my eyes landed on cranked up within me a sort of exasperation and anger. And who was the first thing I'd take out the anger upon? My new friend of hollowed out sex. I'd just decided he wasn't a figment of my imagination, but rather one of those Frisco freaks who walk around at all hours relaying to whomever will listen some crazy thing that they were here to tell us was about to happen, and soon, an alien invasion, the next best earthquake, that Jesus was here and would soon be floating home with his flock, and he'd be grinning and winking at all of those of us who were left behind. Some such tale of twisted baloney. But as I said, while looking down, I glossed over my sexless middle section and noticed that my precious new sneakers were up past the iconography that had been branded upon the canvas or hide of the shoe level with the laced portion of the shoelaces. I let out a very feminine yelp, or it could have been a full-fledged girly scream, trying to articulate the pain I was feeling with words that would have meant my brand new fucking shoes. But me being me, it came out more like, Mandy, stuck in poo. And this, of course, was directed at the San Francisco freak, because I was already blaming him for my somehow not knowing I had passed a sidewalk not in use sign, as well as a please cross here, as in to the other side of the small financial district alleyway the two of us were traversing, or had been only moments before my shoes got stuck in hardening concrete. And after I yelled whatever indecipherable nonsense I had yelled at Mr. Voided Loins, he patiently gave me a look of dismay as if I were mentally slow or something, and said again what he had already repeated maybe 3 times by then. Hey, mister, I said maybe you should pay attention. Learn words. Can't you read? That sidewalk's been closed all week. He was gone before I could apologize, before I had the wherewithal to do so, and I stood there long enough that I had to slip my feet out of my new sneakers and walk home sock-footed all the way up the hill, had blisters for weeks, all the while thinking about what a loin void might be, if it would have been something said, if those had actually been the words directed at me by the Frisco freak that tried to save me and my sneakers from the fresh concrete from across the alley. Just as I couldn't focus on what he was saying in actuality when we crossed paths, I kept imagining that he'd always said what I thought for sure I heard him say. What a weird little pair of words. He had to be from New York City, surely. That kept me from paying attention to where I was going and upon what my new shoes were stepping upon and into. Which is the story of my life in a nutshell, I suppose. Always too engaged with my surroundings to pay attention to myself. Always blaming others for my stupid boo-boos. It's an expensive and an embarrassing problem, to say the least. And one, I'm sure, I'll take to my grave. I'm not a comedian, but it just goes to show that sometimes nailing the punchline is a bitch, am I right? But hell, how would I ever know, not being much of a comic?